I, 28-year-old female, have a 4-month-old German Shepherd puppy. For context, our family dog was of the same breed, and we raised him from when he was 2 months old. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 years ago. Last month, I had to go to work in person suddenly. I got very little notice, so I called up my mom and asked her if she could take care of the puppy for me. She agreed and came over. I told her he was unvaccinated and to be careful. I went to work and I messaged her every now and then to ask how they were doing. She responded with a thumbs up emoji every time. I came back to an empty house and panicked, thinking something had happened to both of them or there was an emergency and they had to go to the vet. I called her, but she didn't pick up. Her phone was switched off. I went over to my neighbors and asked them if they knew anything. They said they had seen my mom taking the puppy out on a leash. I started walking to the nearby public park, and what do you know? My mom's there with the puppy and like 2 other dogs. I went over and asked her why she didn't pick up, and she laughed and said her phone was dead because she was too busy with the puppy to charge it. When we got home, I asked her why she took him outside, that I'd told her not to. She said I never explicitly told her not to take him outside and turned it around on me, saying, "This is how you repay a favor?" She also said the puppy looked antsy, being all cooped up in the house. I have a substantial backyard. I left it at that, and the next day took the puppy to the vet. All was clear at the time, but 4 days later, the puppy started showing symptoms, and turns out he caught parvo. The poor thing went through a lot, but he's been all right for a week now. A couple of days ago, I left him with a sitter to attend the family's Easter celebration. At this point, I hadn't communicated with my mom since the day of. My cousin asked me how the puppy was doing, and I told her the whole thing. Word got around, and now people are condemning my mom for her actions. And honestly, I couldn't care less. Mom called me today and demanded I make things clear with other people, and that it wasn't her fault my puppy fell sick and could have died. I asked for an apology because even if she didn't mean for it to happen, the puppy did suffer. She declined. I blocked her. Am I the idiot? Edit. A lot of confusion about the timeline. I got my puppy at 10 weeks old and he was unvaccinated. I took him to the vet, and at 12 weeks, when my mom came to dog sit, he was due for his second round. He is currently 4 months old and vaccinated. Edit #2. The reason I thought he's unvaxxed, be careful, was enough is that our family dog was not allowed in public spaces until he was 4.5 months old and fully vaccinated. Socialization was done in a safe and controlled environment. I assumed my mom would understand similar rules followed in this situation. Additionally, I had 10 minutes between mom's arrival and my departure, so I could barely explain the pup's schedule and where everything was. Edit #3. Last edit. Few things I'd like to address. I blocked mom after telling her he caught parvo, after a conversation where she did not once ask about his well-being, as she refused to acknowledge fault, and I couldn't deal with her along with the stress of taking care of the pup. I unblocked her later but told her not to contact me without an apology. The puppy was in the ICU for days and in the hospital for a whole week. I also had to hire a service to disinfect and deep clean my house. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Unfortunately, we see this with pets and children all of the time. Grandparents or other mature adults think they know better than the younger generation with whom they interact and completely disregard directions about diet, play, sleep, and general care. It's pretty disrespectful. If your mom didn't know that young dogs who are unvaccinated should not be around other dogs, she should have asked. But to your point, she is a prior dog owner herself, so that root cause falls flat pretty quickly. Do I think your cousin is a blabbermouth who needs to shut her pie hole? Yes, I do. So maybe one thing to consider is how much you tell her that you don't want being repeated in an uncontrolled manner. But saying something when asked about it doesn't make you a jerk. Comment 2. Not the idiot. How are you supposed to make things clear? That it wasn't her fault when it literally was, in fact, her fault that the puppy caught parvo. Parvo! That is so beyond terrifying. I'm so sorry it happened, and I'm glad your pup is doing better now. Yes, maybe you could have communicated better to her, but I still feel it's reasonable to assume that she would understand that he doesn't have his shots yet, =, don't take him outside, let him meet other dogs. That, and she should be taking responsibility and paying for his vet bills since the illness was due to her mistake, not being angry at you for sharing a true factual story with a family member. Man now, for the update. Thank you for reading. A month ago, my world turned upside down when my unvaccinated German Shepherd puppy caught parvo after my mom took him out despite my warnings. The fallout was immediate and severe. The puppy suffered, my relationship with my mom fractured, and family tensions soared. The stakes were high, and the consequences of the past were knocking loudly at my door. The puppy's illness was a wake-up call. I had to juggle vet visits, work, and the overwhelming fear of losing another dog. The vet bills piled up, and the emotional toll was heavy. My mom's refusal to apologize only added fuel to the fire. The family was divided, some siding with her, claiming I overreacted, while others supported me, outraged by her carelessness. The tension came to a head at a family gathering. Whispers and pointed looks were exchanged, and I felt like an outsider in my own family. The strain was obvious, and I struggled to maintain my composure. It was then that my uncle, who had been silent until now, stood up. He cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. He recounted his own experience of losing a pet due to a similar situation years ago. His words resonated with everyone, and I saw my mom's face change. She had been defensive, but now there was a hint of understanding, of regret. After my uncle finished, there was a moment of quiet reflection before the room erupted into conversation. Days passed, and the puppy began to recover. His energy returned, and with it, a sense of normalcy. I focused on his care, ensuring he received all his vaccinations and plenty of love. The house was once again filled with the sound of his playful barks and the patter of his paws on the floor. Then out of the blue, my mom showed up at my door. She looked different, softer somehow. She asked to see the puppy, and I hesitated but eventually let her in. She sat on the floor and he cautiously approached her, sniffing before giving her a lick. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes, and apologized. It was a moment I hadn't expected, one that brought a sense of closure I didn't realize I needed. We talked for hours about the puppy, about our family dog, and about how the past can't be changed, but the future can be shaped by our actions. It was a turning point, and while it didn't erase the hurt, it started the process of healing. The puppy is now thriving, a ball of energy that brings joy to my days. My mom and I are rebuilding our relationship, one step at a time. The family is slowly coming back together, understanding that while mistakes were made, forgiveness is possible. Thank you for reading. My classmates accuse me of faking Tourette's and get me kicked out of the school event. So I prove them wrong and watch them squirm as I take the stage and steal the show. Background: I am a 16-year-old male and I suffer from Tourette's syndrome, which I was diagnosed with when I was around 11 years old. I say suffer because in my experience, it has been horrible. It affects daily aspects of my life and isn't something I joke about. The other day, while I was in the library, this girl who is 18 years old and a senior, we will call her Amy for the sake of the story, came up to me and we started chatting. Anyways, Amy tells me that she heard through the grapevine that I was going around telling people that I have Tourette's when I don't. Extra bit of information. Amy is friends with this girl that I used to be relatively close with. We will call her Lily, and Lily knows that I have Tourette's. She used to come to my house often and only found out because she heard my mom asking me if my new medication was helping with my tics. I thought Lily was my friend, so I explained to her that I was diagnosed as a child and it is something I struggle a lot with. She seemed okay with that answer and didn't bring it up again. Lily and I had a falling out around a year ago and haven't spoken since. I got upset at Amy and asked her who told her that I had it in the first place, already kind of knowing it was Lily, and she quickly tried to change the subject. I, being extremely bothered by the fact that my diagnosis is being talked about in conversations that don't include me, confronted her. I told Amy that if she thought I was faking, I could show her my diagnosis papers and records of all the tests they did on me as a child to reach the conclusion that I have Tourette's. She said I was getting defensive and rude and that I shouldn't shoot the messenger. The next day, Amy's brother, who is 16 years old and is in my math class, told me that his sister is still going around telling people that I am faking Tourette's. He knows that Amy is a liar and just likes attention being on her. He also told me this isn't the first time she's done something like this. I went up to Amy that day at lunch and said, "If you don't keep my name out of your mouth, we're going to have a serious problem." I don't need you talking about my medical history with complete strangers. If I hear that you start spreading this again, I'm going to get the deans involved." This apparently made her cry during the next period and have what she described as a bullying-induced autistic meltdown. So I got called to the counselor's office, and when I explained what happened, the counselor said that I wasn't being tolerant enough and that if I didn't apologize to Amy, I would get written up and my mom would be called. I went ahead and apologized to Amy, but I told my mom what happened. She said that I was not in the wrong and that Amy should have been the one to get punished. I agree with her, but the school staff seem to think that I am in the wrong and a bully. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you guys so much for the advice. It really helped me form a plan for what to do. Like some of you said, I'm going to get my mom involved. A few of you guys suggested getting my dad involved too, but he is not in the picture, so I may have my mom's boyfriend come too, just because authority figures tend to not take moms seriously sometimes. I'm also going to ask for the deans to speak with Lily about what she allegedly said about me to Amy and other people so that I can try to control the spread of information at the root. Again, thank you all for taking the time to read my post and taking me seriously. It means a lot to have adults actually listen to me and not brush me off because of my age. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Amy is the TA. I suggest you get revenge by telling everyone that she is faking autism to get you into trouble. She is a bully and an AH all the way. I bet your teachers fail to see her true colors because they are biased regarding both your genders, as in boys always bully girls, and there is no way it could be the other way around, which would mean that your teachers are also AHs. Comment 2. Not the idiot. The particular wording you used to talk to Amy at lunch might not have been the best, but she shouldn't be spreading around your personal information, especially when you already told her not to. Would recommend escalating to the deans and explaining the whole situation, including the comments the counselor made. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around for an update. Things have been busy. After the whole mess with Amy, I thought things would settle down. But no, Lily, who I thought was out of my life, decided to stir the pot again. She started dating this guy, Mark, who's on the basketball team and has a lot of pull in the school. Suddenly, I'm hearing whispers again, and this time it's not just about my Tourette's. They're saying I made up the whole thing with Amy to get attention. I couldn't believe it. I confronted Mark during gym class, asking him why he's spreading lies about me. He just laughed and said, "Man, you need to chill. It's just high school." Just high school? This is my life he's messing with. But I let it go, thinking it would die down. It didn't. Next thing I know, there's a rumor that I've been bullying Lily, that I'm the reason she's been missing school. The truth is, I haven't spoken to her in over a year. But with Mark's influence, people believed it. I got called into the principal's office, and they're talking about suspension, a mark on my record, the works. My mom came in, furious, demanding to see proof. They had none, of course, because it was all made up. But the damage was done. People looked at me differently. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, during a school assembly, Amy fainted. It was chaos. When she came to, she accused me of stressing her out so much with my aggressive behavior that it caused her to pass out. I was nowhere near her, but try telling that to a room full of panicked students and teachers. The next day, I found a note in my locker from the school counselor asking me to consider the impact of my actions on others' well-being. I was at my breaking point. I wanted to scream, to tell everyone the truth, but it felt like no one would listen. I started to keep to myself more, avoiding the places where I knew I'd run into Amy, Lily, or Mark. It was easier that way. The final straw came when I was disqualified from the school science fair. I'd been working on my project for months, and it was important to me. But the school said there were concerns about my ability to participate in a community event, given the tensions I was involved in. It was a gut punch. I'd done nothing wrong, but I was being punished. I told my mom, and she was ready to go to war for me. She talked about transferring me to another school, but I didn't want to run away. This was my problem, and I had to face it. So we met with the school board instead. It was a long, exhausting meeting, but in the end, they couldn't ignore the lack of evidence against me. They let me back into the science fair, but the whispers didn't stop. I'm tired of defending myself, tired of the drama, but I'm not going to let them win. I'm going to keep my head down and get through this. High school's almost over and I've got bigger plans than these small-minded games. Thanks for reading. It helps to know someone's out there listening. My neighbor let their dog poop on my lawn and shook my guava tree. So I built a fence and sold the fruit right under their nose. Hi, I inherited a house from my dad from his passing a few years ago. His house came with the guava tree in the yard. The tree has been there for a good portion of my teenage years and is special to me. My wife and I were one day thinking of ways for extra income and realized we could literally sell the fruit. We got the permit and started to prepare guava in different ways. For reference, I sell the fruit whole, sliced and put into cups, candied, etc. We realized that while the branches weren't exactly hanging over our neighbor's lawn, sometimes guava would either fall over or hit against the fence at the right angle and end up over there. So my wife and I purchased a tree fruit net for the side of the tree that was closer to the neighbor's yard. Since then, I don't think any fruit fell into their yard, which is good. What led me here today is that last week while my wife was out on the lawn, the neighbor's kid approached her and asked what happened to the fruit. My wife explained that we keep the fruit in a net so that we can have more. Apparently, the kid ran off and came back with their dad, who asked my wife the same thing. She explained again, and from what she said, the father looked like he took it personally. He asked if we thought he was stealing, and my wife explained no, we didn't think that. We just want to maximize the fruit that falls from our tree since we do use it for some profit. Today, the same neighbor knocked on the door and I answered. He asked if we could talk about the fruit tree situation. He said that he thinks it's selfish how my father would freely let the fruit fall wherever. But now that I'm here, I'm hoarding the fruit. I explained that the tree is my property, so whatever comes from the tree is also my property. I said he could buy guava from us if he wanted, but he looked more upset that I would even recommend that. I'm glad his kid liked the fruit, but now that I'm making money off this, I can't just let that happen freely. He called me selfish again, and that I could at least spare a few. I said again he could buy some from me if he wanted. I offered a box for $5. Now every time we see him around, he doesn't smile at us, which I guess is expected. But now they let the dog poop on our lawn and keep telling his kid loudly that the neighbors ended the life of the fruit fairy. Some of the neighbors are still cool with us, but it's like we made an enemy out of him, and I'm feeling slightly guilty for the kid. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Your tree, your net, your fruit, your side of the fence. The YouTubers are silly as hell, votes are silly as hell. However, totally separate from whether you're the AH, giving away a few dollars worth of fruit once a year is probably the smart thing to do to keep the neighbors neighborly. The goodwill of the people who live next to you is often important in life. Comment 2, not the idiot, but how about a compromise? Why not see if the neighbor's kid would come help harvest these fruits for you to sell? You can pay him in fruit, and you will probably become good friends with both the kid and your neighbors. As others have said, it's only $5 and could be a nice learning experience for the kid. Now for the update, hi. A lot has happened since the last post. Just when I thought things couldn't get more tense with the neighbor, they did. The other day, I caught him on camera, deliberately shaking the fence so hard that several guavas fell into his yard. I was fuming. I wanted to confront him, but my wife suggested we should try to handle it calmly. We invited him over to talk, hoping to clear the air. I showed him the footage and he just shrugged, saying it was just fruit and I was making a big deal out of nothing. But it wasn't nothing to me. It was about respect. I told him that, and he just laughed. It was clear he didn't see the value in what we were doing. The next day, his kid came over looking sad. He missed picking up the guavas. I felt a pang of guilt. I remembered how my dad used to let me climb the tree and how much joy it brought me. I didn't want to be the bad guy, but I also couldn't let my neighbor walk all over me. I decided to give the kid a small bag of guavas for free. I thought it would be a peace offering, but it backfired. The neighbor saw it and accused me of trying to bribe his kid. He threatened to call the authorities for me poisoning the neighborhood with my selfishness. I was at a loss. I didn't want to escalate things, but I also couldn't let him slander me. I talked to some of the other neighbors, and they agreed he was out of line. They suggested I put up a fence, a real one, not just a net. It felt extreme, but I was considering it. Then 2 days ago, I woke up to find my guava tree vandalized. Someone had cut through several branches, ruining a good portion of the fruit. I was devastated. I knew it was him, but I had no proof. I felt like I was at war over something as simple as fruit. I had to do something. I decided to install a proper fence, one that would keep the neighbor out for good. It was a hard choice, but I needed to protect what was mine. The fence went up yesterday, and it's sturdy. It's not what I wanted, but it was necessary. Today, I saw the neighbor's kid looking through the fence, eyes wide at the sight of the guavas. I could tell he was upset. I called him over and handed him a bag of guavas, telling him he could come over and pick some up anytime, as long as he asked first. His face lit up and he ran off to show his dad. Later, the neighbor came over, not to fight, but to apologize. He said his son had told him what I said, and it made him realize he was wrong. He offered to pay for the damaged branches and even asked if he could buy some guavas. I agreed and we shook hands. It's been a rough few days, but things are looking up. The fence is up, the neighbor is no longer an enemy, and I feel like I've managed to keep a bit of my dad's spirit alive by sharing the guavas with the kid. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.